It's Bonnie with So Inspired by Bonnie with another Tuesday's tip, even though it's Wednesday. Yesterday, as many of you know, I was in the car all day driving from Colorado to Texas, so we had to delay our Tuesday's tip one day. So I didn't want to miss seeing you guys, and I wanted to give you another Tuesday's tip. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me get the computer set up so that I can see the questions as they come in. I will answer the questions if you have any questions at the end of our little segment, but I'll let you know, go through the little process, and then if you have any questions, we'll review those at the end. So let's see if we're all set up. Looks like we are. Hi Terry, I see you're here. I'm gonna let a couple others show up and then we'll get started. I hope you will sign up for our newsletter. That's at www.soinspiredbybonnie.com, and that's spelled S-E-W, not S-O. And when you sign up, you'll get some free embroidery designs, and we have different tips and announcements for our Tuesday's tips, as well as announcements for our designs and specials. So I hope you'll stay in touch with us there. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Carol. Today what I wanted to discuss was taking care of your cutting mats, your self-healing cutting mats to be more specific. I'm the first to admit that I did not take care of mine. I have used and abused my cutting mat. And then I was, scouring along on Pinterest one day. That's a lot of fun. I know a lot of you like Pinterest just as much as I do. And I came across this deal about cleaning and caring for your self-healing cutting mats. And I thought, what? We're supposed to clean those things? So I thought, oh, maybe I should, check this out. And what I found out is, yes, indeed, we're supposed to clean them, and we're supposed to actually moisturize them. Another thing that I was reminded of, I knew better, but I had fallen into some bad habits, is that when you're using your cutting mat, we're all creatures of habit in so many ways, and you cut 2-inch strips or 2.5-inch strips or 5-inch squares or what have you, and I know, and I imagine some of you do the same thing, I kind of have a tendency to go to the same location on my cutting mat and start cutting. And what that does when you do that is you start wearing a groove in a specific area of your mat. So it's a good idea that when you're cutting, and like I said, I knew this, but I had just kind of gotten into some bad habits and, whoops. What you should do is get those squares or strips in different areas of your mat so that you're not always cutting in the same spot all the time, because that, again, is going to wear a groove in your cutting mat. I did take a picture of my poor little mat before I got started, and I'll go back and post these pictures, before and after pictures, in the feed, or yeah, I'll probably have to do it in the feed after we're done here today live. But here is my poor little mat. You can see it's really discolored. There's some pretty heavy grooves worn in where I cut in the same places all the time. So live and learn. Live by my mistakes, and hopefully you'll have your mat last a lot longer than this poor little guy's gonna last. But I figured if I could clean up this mat that was so abused and get it to looking a lot better and get it remoisturized, then taking a brand new one, or one that's not in as bad a shape, is going to last 10 times as long as this little guy that was abused. So I thought I would help you in that regard, and I've learned something new myself. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a handy little brush from your kitchen. This one's just kind of a smooth little brush. It's got a little bit of nylon fiber there. And then you're going to need another little brush that's soft but has a longer bristle on it. You know, just, again, very soft, mild brushes. You don't want super duper hard ones like the metal brushes that we find in our husband's garages. Anyway, and then you're going to need a measuring cup, and you're going to need a gallon measuring of some sort. Now this was a quart, so you know, I multiplied it the appropriate amount to get a gallon measurement. You're going to want some white vinegar, and you're going to want, for another supply, some dishwashing soap. I would recommend Ivory, which is very subtle, or not subtle, but very gentle. Or Palmolive is another very gentle dishwashing soap. I would stay away from the ones with a red dye though, because the red dye is going to possibly stain your cutting mat, and we certainly don't want to add issues instead of get rid of issues. And then you're going to want either a big towel or a couple of smaller towels that you can pat it dry after it's been cleaned. So what you're going to do when you get all your supplies together is you're going to take your cutting mat. Now this one is a 24-inch by 18-inch size mat, which I think is a real good handy size. I have different size mats, but this one's just a real handy size for me to move around my sewing room with. You're going to take it, and you're going to take this little brush, and you're going to go over the entire surface, just back and forth, to get rid of any loose fibers or fuzz that's gotten down in the grooves of your self-healing cutting mat. Then you're going to put that aside, and depending upon the size of your cutting mat, if you've got a smaller one, it might fit in a sink. This one was too big for any sink that I have, so I put mine in my bathtub. Now, if your mat is even larger, maybe you have a kiddie pool or something that's, you know, even bigger, but you need to be able to submerge it in water and still have it laying flat. So I went to the bathtub and I put my mat in there, and then I used this so that I could measure out a gallon of water. And for me to get a nice submerged area, I used about 4 gallons of water. If you don't have anything to measure your water with, you can kind of guesstimate the mix. It's not something that it has to be exact. So if you're not exact, don't worry. But generally speaking, you want about a 1/4 cup of your white vinegar to a gallon of the water. I know this is only a quart, but it gave me some reference of how much water I was throwing in there. Once I had my 4 gallons in there, because that's what it took to get this nice and submerged, I put in a cup of the vinegar. You know, I used my measuring cup and just put in a cup of the vinegar. Then I went ahead and swished it around to kind of mix the two together. I made sure that the mat was submerged under the water. I set my timer for 20 minutes, and what that's doing is that's getting moisture back into your self-healing cutting mat so that the self-healing properties of your mat last longer. It needs some moisture in your mat to do its job for us. Once the timer went off for the 20 minutes, I came back to the tub and I got out this little brush and I squirted some, I started to say Palmolive. Ivory is what I had on hand. So I squirted in some Ivory dishwashing soap. I didn't measure it. I just, you know, squirted some in and kind of rustled it around to kind of get a little lather going. And then I scrubbed. And I scrubbed on some of the problem areas that were discolored. And I was surprised at how, even when I came back, I was surprised at how much the vinegar and water had just released some of the discoloration off my mat. One other point that I forgot to mention is you want to use lukewarm or cool water. I'd probably lean more towards the cool water, but I was reading, who knew there's actually instructions on your cutting mat. I come from a family that's notorious for not reading instructions very well, although we all should, but it mentions using lukewarm water. You don't want to get your water too hot, and sometimes lukewarm is objective to whoever's making the hot, the water warm. I like a warm, a hotter warm than my husband. So, it's all kind of subjective. So I would err on the side of cool water as opposed to, getting the water too warm, because if you get too hot of water on your mat, it could warp, and you don't want it to warp. That's another reason we want it to lay flat in the tub, or if it's a smaller mat, you can put it in the sink, or if it's even larger, you might need a kiddie pool. You want it to lay flat so that when it's wet, it's not going to warp on you. So then again, back to what we were doing, I scrub all over, and it came up pretty darn clean. I was really impressed at how it really brought it back to life. I'll hold it up here so you can see the mat looks much better than when I started. Is it new? No, it's not new, but it's certainly a lot better than it was. And if I had done this from the very beginning on my mat, I think it would still look brand new. So you get it out of the tub. I go ahead and rinsed it in the tub, to get any of the vinegar or the dishwashing soap off. I did rinse it under the tub, again with cool water. And then you're going to take 1 or 2 towels, whatever you have that will completely cover your cutting mat. And I am working in a small space here. You're going to lay your mat on the towel on a flat surface. And I just did mine back on the cutting table so that I knew I had a nice flat surface to work from. You want it to dry on a flat surface, again, because you don't want it to get warped. You don't want to risk that. So you pat it dry on the back, and this towel's big enough where it went over the entire cutting mat, and you're going to pat it dry on the top. And then once I had it nice and patted dry, I got rid of my towel, and I just laid the cutting mat on my, or not the cutting mat, I laid my my self-healing cutting mat on my cutting table so that it would lay flat and could dry. And that's all there was to it. I was really surprised at how clean it came out. The moisture's back in my self-healing cutting mat, so it's going to work a lot better. I was just really impressed. So it is something that I will be doing from now on, and I will try to make myself more aware when I have a tendency to cut in the same place, that I need to move that over so it's not exactly in the same place where I'm wearing a groove through my cutting mat. For those of you that have the white cutting mats, or those opaque hard cutting mats, or the harder blue cutting mats, I am not positive exactly how you would wash those, because I haven't tested that, but I'm sure that you could go in and periodically remove any of the loose fibers as we did in the very beginning. And I can't see that water or vinegar is going to hurt them at all, because those are pretty mild deals. You just want to make sure that you have it nice and flat when you dry it out so that you don't get any warping. Again, I thought it was a success, so, learn something new all the time. I'm going to go over there and see if we have any questions. And let me refresh my page. And hopefully my computer will behave today and not misbehave like it sometimes wants to do. And, okay. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions. This is pretty self-explanatory. I did want to mention, if for some reason your cutting mat gets warped, and this could happen, maybe you had it in the car and it got too hot in the car and it got warped, or maybe when you were cleaning it, you had it in too small of an area and it got warped, because it was bent. What you can do is you can take it outside on a nice day. You want, to put it out in the sun where it's nice and warm. I know that seems counterproductive because it was heat that warped it in the first place. But if you put it out in the sun, lay it on a flat surface, make sure it's not a bumpy surface, but a nice flat surface out in the sun to get it warmed up again. It'll flatten out. Or you could put some heavy books on top of it, nice and smooth. You don't want to have anything uneven so that when it dries, it will lay back down flat. So that was a trick that I heard about too. If you do have a problem and your mat gets warped, there's a way to get it back nice and flat. Just get it out in the heat where it's kind of wants to warp itself, but then put some heavy books on it to flatten it out. And then once you have it nice and flat, you can bring it back in and use it again. No problems there. So I hope you've learned a couple of little things like I did on this one. Let's see. Oh, Angie mentioned something here. Let me read what Angie said. She said that she sort of left her mat under a heat press and went and turned it on and it warped. Do you think if I put it in hot water it would fix it? Angie, I think if it's warped like that, you might try putting it in some water to just kind of get it a little soft again. But like I just mentioned, get it out in the sun, lay it on a flat surface, get some heavy books on top of it to retrain it back flat, and it hopefully will be okay. I don't know, that's a little bit different problem. I don't know if it melted in any places, hopefully not, but you might be able to get that cutting mat flat again. Give that a try and let us know in the comments how it worked, because I'm curious how that might work if it does. So it should though. Jerry said, sounds like I have some cleaning to do. Well, I'm right there with you, Jerry, because I know I did. But, you know, if we can't laugh at ourselves and if we can't learn new things no matter what our age is, I feel like it's kind of a loss. I'm learning stuff all the time, so, and I'm not too afraid to admit it. So, anyway. I think that's it. I think that's all the questions we have. So, I guess we will see you next Tuesday, regular time. And if you think of any questions after the fact, just post them in the comments section, because I do check those and I can address them, you know, after we go off live. Again, I do post the replays on Facebook, or they will be on the Facebook page, of course, but I repost them also on YouTube as well as my Pinterest page. So if you missed it and you want to see it, there's 3 different places you can go and find the tips. But until next Tuesday, have some fun sewing, and bye-bye.